Welcome to the Write Good Books podcast, the audio companion to WriteGoodBooks.com with your host Jason Bougger.
And it's the second week of October, and you know what that means? NaNoWriMo is coming.
Dun, dun, dun.
I am Jason Bougger. I'm joined by our co-host, Scott Michael Childers. How you doing today on this fine fall day?
I'm scared of NaNoWriMo, the monster. No, I'm doing fine.
Doing just fine. So what is NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month, and it's an annual contest that takes place in November, where the goal is to just get you to write 50,000 words, which equates to a small novel in some circles. It's not a real contest to where somebody judges your work. It's just it's a personal tracker. Can you write 1,667 words in a day to reach that goal?
Actually, yeah, it really is. It's sort of a contest because you're competing against yourself. And it also to prove to yourself that, yeah, I can write enough words to make a short novel.
It's really cool because whether you do anything with a novel doesn't matter. Whether it's good or bad doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your genre is. Nothing matters except for that word count. And then you can say, hey, I wrote a novel last month. And it's just kind of to train yourself to write. Have you done it before?
Yeah. I've started a few times, completed last year's. Don't know if I'll be doing it again this year. In fact, I'll know by the time this episode is released. And at this point, personally, I don't know if I get much out of it now. I think back then it was very useful. Getting used to the idea of I've got a deadline, I've got to hit a certain amount of goals, and I need to sit here, butt in chair, and do it.
And that's kind of the point, isn't it? To prove to yourself that you can get those words out when you need to. So you're competing against yourself to make sure you can do it. I've tried it 3 times. The first year, I didn't know what I was doing. I tried something way too large. I don't want to say it was a disaster, but I'll say it was a learning experience. And after a week or 2, I just had to put it away and move on. It was just too crazy. The second year, I came in completely prepared and ended up writing my novel, Holy Fudgesicles, first draft that way, and it's since been published. And the third year, I did succeed. I just haven't really done anything with that book since. That was more of a just, can I do it? And I won't even lie. I'm not even going to attempt this year. I've got too much else going on. And the work in progress I have, I don't want to wait till November. And I know it'll take more than 1 month to finish.
Yeah, I think it really is kind of that learning curve. And you could use NaNoWriMo also to do something outside your usual genre.
Yes.
Because this is, for many people, it's a practice run. It's a, what can I do with this? Maybe you have an experimental piece you want to try to get down in the first draft. Well, use NaNoWriMo as your excuse. For the experienced writers, you may already have works in progress, like you just said. So yeah, you could use NaNoWriMo for many things. Beginning writers, definitely just to prove to yourself you could hit that word count.
Yeah.
So a little bit ago, you talked about being prepared.
Yes.
Preparing for NaNoWriMo. Well, if all we're doing is just getting words down, what kind of preparation is there?
That's a good question. And some people might not need to prepare. You might be able to just sit down and get the words out without thinking about it. But the thinking about it, for me, is what hurt me that first time. I just thought too much. So when I prepared for it the second attempt, I didn't really have a strict outline. And just for the record keepers out there, it's perfectly legal to bring an outline with you to NaNoWriMo. They encourage it in some cases. But preparing, I think that's it. If you kind of know what type of book you want to write, if you know the general direction of the plot, for me it's just a lot easier to get those words out. It also helped to pick a genre. In my case, the first failed attempt, I had too big of a scope, too big of a plot. The second attempt, I went in with a more casual voice for the book that was just, for me, an easier style to write. There's a lot, first person, writing more as yourself or your conscious thoughts. A lot easier to track the progress, too.
Well, and building off of what people do to prepare, world building, having some ideas of what is it that you're going to be writing about. Because really, NaNoWriMo, that month of November, it's first draft words. So if you do a little bit of that prep work, if you're doing a little bit of research, cool. But yeah, it's November 1, you start your word count, end of November, or earlier if you get really excited about it. Great.
The one thing that's important, you don't have a lot of time. Maybe it can take you 2 or 3 hours to get out that many words per day. So you don't want to spend any time sitting there thinking about, well, what am I going to do next? That's where preparing ahead helps. Real quick, I want to share my NaNoWriMo ritual because it's fun. I love Halloween, and I love staying up late on Halloween and having a couple beers and watching a scary movie and eating some popcorn. So what I did those 3 years I did NaNoWriMo, I did that, and then as soon as it hit midnight, I said, well, hey, it's November 1st. Let's go hit the computer and write for a couple hours. And I started off all 3 attempts that way. It was kind of fun.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, get yourself in the mood and really make sure you take that day off of work. But
yeah. And that brings up another point. NaNoWriMo does not have to be done solo. If you go to their webpage, you'll see meetups, you'll see writing blitzes.
Support groups.
So you can do this alone. That's how I prefer to do it for NaNoWriMo. But other people, they want kind of that writing community. And even those joint writing evenings, sometimes they have. I've never been to one, but I've heard there's even competitions there that night, or teams, or whatever.
Yeah, little lock-ins, and kind of you get together and just go and compare word counts. Pretty fun. You mentioned it doesn't have to be a solo act.
Right.
If you've got a family, especially, it can't be a solo act because you've got other B players involved, and they need to understand that you got to get your word count done. That means you have to keep that door shut until those words are done, which, that doesn't work for everybody either. Oh, what else? It's great when you get those word counts. I want to talk about what do you do when you fall behind.
Oh, okay.
I stopped the first time because I fell too far behind. The other 2 attempts, I fell a little bit behind, and I just made up for it on weekends. But you've got to really keep that schedule free. Something might happen, and you miss a day. 1,600 words to catch up is not easy.
Well, again, we're talking first draft quality words.
Yeah.
So it's not the novel will completely fall apart. And I've heard people talk about their NaNoWriMos where they completely change direction, after the second week.
Yeah.
And it's just, this isn't working, and I'm just going to keep writing and finish it as if I started differently.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to bring up too. Somewhat related to what you just said, self-editing. You don't have time to go back and double-check things. You don't have time to check consistency. So just make yourself a little note. You're like, was this character a boy or a girl? I don't remember. I'll put a little parentheses there and say, check on this after I'm done. Yeah. Kind of leave yourself some notes.
Yeah. It really helps, amongst the other benefits we talked about, it helps break that self-editing during first draft, too. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of just get it out of the head, and use the revision phase where you can focus on a bigger picture type of thing.
Right. I think that's the main goal. If you want to be left with a book that you can practice revising in December.
Yeah. And the ones I started but didn't finish, I do plan on going back to at least 2 of them. They're in my vault. Yeah. And some of these stories I may never get back to, and that's cool. I got the practice. And then there's others where I really do want to get back to. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. My first one, I don't think I can recover. It wasn't an original enough story, and I don't want to put any work into it. The third one is decent. It just needs more work, and I'm putting it away because I want to work on something else. Yeah. So that happens.
So it's up to you, dear listener, to decide what you want to do with your efforts. If you want to keep them or just call it a practice piece or whatever. Yeah. It's completely up to you.
What's important is that you just do it.
Yes.
But speaking of just doing it, I wanted to talk
We're
about...
sponsored by Nike?
Yes, we are today. Please buy Nike. Actually, we're not sponsored by Nike, but if you go to writegoodbooks.com/podcast...
We'll take a Nike sponsorship.
We'll take it.
Just kidding. This will probably hit the cutting room floor. I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. I wanted to talk about the cons. When should you not do NaNoWriMo? Or when would doing it actually be bad for you as a writer? I think, for me, the biggest con to doing it is I think it can encourage sloppy writing. everybody says focus on the word count. It's so important to get the word count out. But, if you're stuck with some kind of mess that you can never use again, could that hurt you?
Well, let me put it this way. If you get your 50,000, you finish the project, which for some people is a really tough thing to do because they'll start project after project after project.
Lots of new writers have that problem, I think.
Right, and never finish. This gets you to a finish.
It does get you to a finish.
So you get used to the idea of seeing a writing project, all the way through. And again, what I suggest is it also teaches you to think about the revision phase as that separate phase. Mm-hmm. So, get it out there and then fix it in post, right?
Yeah.
And so it is going to be sloppy. It is going to be messy. There's going to be grammar and spelling and continuity errors. That's what a first draft does. So I would disagree with that statement. I can kind of see where people are coming from, though. But I would disagree.
I think as long as you know that going in, that you might have to throw out 25,000 of these 50,000 words, maybe that's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
For me, I kind of felt like, this is done, and I can still use this for a novel. I think I would have been a little sad if I would have said, this is done, but this is awful, and I can't recover from and I can't use this for anything.
And that sometimes happens in non-NaNoWriMo.
Right? That's true. So Brandon Sanderson said he wrote 8 novels before he was published.
I think...
if you do a couple of NaNoWriMos you can't publish, you still get that little plaque saying, I finished it. It was kind of cool that the first few years I did NaNoWriMo, if you completed it, they had license with CreateSpace and you'd get a free copy.
Oh, cool.
Now, I don't think they do that anymore, although I haven't done it for a few years, so maybe they do now. So I had a hard copy I have like a prototype version of Holy Fudgesicles that nobody could ever see, although it was probably had a lot more of my heart in it. Yeah.
Well,
polished.
And then some of the other benefits, I got a discount on some writing software when I finished.
Oh, yeah.
There's other deals too, but that's not why you do it, of course.
Right. You do it just to say, hey, I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books or 10 books. I don't know how long the contest has been going.
A while. Look it up. Was it NaNoWriMo.org?
Yep.
Okay.
You get a free account, and you can track your word counts. I'll talk real quick about how it works, because I said nobody reads your words except you. It just has a form. You just copy and paste your words into it, and it tracks your progress. You can do it either every day or twice a day or just once at the very end. Yep. And they just keep a list of winners. And then you get a little badge you can put on your website and say, hey guys, look what I did. And it's fun. It builds character.
No, you're building character. You're writing.
There
you're
you go.
Oh, that was a bad one.
It's bad. I wrote down on my little notes here for cons that you might lose your mind.
Okay, explain that.
I'd like to address that for just a moment. The first time I did it, I got so excited that stay up on Halloween night and then start at midnight. But then after week number 2 or week number 1.5 came and I was 5,000 or 6,000 words down, you just all of a sudden, you get this anxiety, this, I don't know if I want to say depression, but you get just kind of sad and let down. And I started getting really hard on myself. And I remember saying to my wife that one Saturday, it's like, I have to write 6,000 words today if I want to do this again. And I think she said in a really understanding way, how important is it that you do? And at that point I was like, you know what, that's true. I've already got 15,000 words done. It's okay to step back. And I think that's important to know, that it is okay to step back and not beat yourself up if you don't get those words done. How many people get 15,000 words done in a month? I rarely do now, so I guess that's encouraging.
But then try again.
Then try again next year. And I haven't really looked into this, but I think they do these Camp NaNoWriMo things every so often where it's not in November. It's just another fun, see how many words you can get done. So, I don't know. You have any other closing thoughts on NaNoWriMo? Nano.
No, I don't think so. I think we've said it all. So there's still time to start your planning. Get signed up at NaNoWriMo.org. Tell your friends and loved ones that you'll see them in December.
And encourage them to do it too.
Oh, there you go.
Team building, etc.
So that way they don't call you up saying, hey, let's do something. Because they'll be busy writing as well.
And then you can all exchange war stories. So I guess on that note, next week we'll look at the opposite of this. Today was about meeting word count goals. So next week we'll talk about goals you can work on for writing if you're not doing NaNoWriMo. So until then, thanks for checking us out, and if you'd like to support the podcast, look us up on the web at www.writegoodbooks.com/podcast. See you next time.
See ya.